397 people watched the live version, 700 watched the digital version, and the light bulb went off. The pandemic changed everything. It forced us to go digital. We didn't have a choice. I was looking for every possible way of still connecting with our target demographics without losing any of the momentum and inertia that we had already created. To me, the opportunity is the relationships. Business development has to be the flywheel. You can't just rely on one medium to connect and engage with people.
You spent your whole life studying this and advising people, younger people. What should they be doing if they want to create wealth?
I would say,
did anyone at these big companies look at what you were doing and say, you're nuts, like you're giving away something for free, you're not charging?
unquestionably, and even worse, so because everything we've done to date has been what I would describe as grassroots, like bottom up, hand-to-hand combat, if you will. We didn't have any corporate endorsement.
They were creating friction for you.
Well, and so it's interesting because as we've gotten bigger, we've actually had businesses now ask us to come in, and they're asking what we would charge for consulting. I'm like, I'll do it for free.
Oh, nice.
I'll do it for free, right? Like,
Right.
to me, the opportunity is the relationships, and I don't want to prevent access.
Part of the pandemic, the general population in corporate America was not on Zoom, digital, whatever. It just wasn't a way of doing business.
The pandemic changed everything. So growing a business and having this pipeline, like obviously I knew the data on what my flows were, and I was using that to predict like future staffing needs. I also knew I had a pipeline that was equivalent to the size of my business at the time. And that's the future. Like that's what I'm working for, in addition to maintaining what we have. And I was so afraid of losing that pipeline that ultimately I was looking for every possible way of still connecting with our target demographics without losing any of the momentum and inertia that we had already created. So as the pandemic happened, and even in Texas, they did not want to be in big rooms together. We couldn't do the dinner seminars or the lunch events that we were doing before. So it forced us to go digital. And I had been thinking about digital prior, but this was an example where we didn't have a choice. March 23rd of 2020 was the first Zoom I had ever done. And it was a seminar that I had creatively titled, Can I Still Afford to Retire? Mind you, the markets were down, let's just say 33%, 34%. I didn't know where we were in that cycle. It ended up being the day before the low in 2020, right? But I ended up having 397 attendees on my Zoom. First Zoom I've ever done.
You must have been like, what the hell is going on?
I remember, because obviously we had to, so I was live, by the way. We recorded it and edited it afterwards. But I remember vividly looking at the number and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely the most people, I didn't say that out loud, but this is the most people I've ever presented to at once. Candidly, now I've done 10,000 people. But the point is at the time, I'm like, I'm staring at a mirror because that's basically all Zoom is. And I'm going to do this presentation. 397 people watched the live version. 700 people watched the digital version right after it. And the light bulb went off. I'm like, I got to get digital as fast as I possibly can. A lot of people during the pandemic, they spent time with family, they did fun things. I didn't. My family didn't see me at all. I was staying separate and continuing to go to the office. But I spent the next 2 weekends coming in. I brought 6 suits in, did these little wardrobe changes, and I spent all 4 of those weekend days just filming content. And we spent like 25 grand redoing our website and built like the initial media archive. And then we just started doing email campaigns, sending out the recordings of our presentations.
And you were giving away free content.
We gave it all away. And if you look at the Bogart Wealth website, you'll see even some of that legacy stuff, and even it's on our YouTube channel. Like we gave it all away, and I don't gateway it. There are ways that you can subscribe to our content so you get the updates as the updates are released, but we're giving it all away. We were getting, let's just say 15 to 20 new leads every single month doing the live events. After we started getting that digital stuff inside, I remember the week of July 4th of 2020, we had 100 unique new leads that week, and it continued to grow week over week over week. And you want to talk about scaling. I had to take one of my internal people, move them into a business development role just so they could respond to the inbound communications, finding times to book meetings with these people. Like it was a rapidly scaling exercise as fast as we could.
Wow. And you've just provided me a great idea. One of the reasons I started this podcast was not to market for R360 at all. It was to give away what's in the head of incredibly successful individuals like yourself that have literally got yourself off the floor after being knocked out, negative net wealth, and built incredible wealth. So my grandfather always said, if you're going to learn to shave, try to learn on someone else's face first. But the idea that you gave me, I've been working with families of wealth now, myself being one of them too, since 2011 when I started with Tiger 21. But Tiger was more about being a better investor, where we're about holistic wealth. And I could take like some really deep learnings around the fishes: financial, intellectual, social, human, emotional, and spiritual. So I'm writing this in the night owl and bringing value that I give to members, but half of the members probably read it. But I could, like you, create like incredible content and just give it away for free.
You know this, but AI can leverage that even faster.
John Marshall had $2 billion exits, software engineer. Now he's in the wild, wild west of AI. He has 200 employees. He's going to provide the AI backbone for R360. And he was telling me, oh, I used to pay like $100,000 for these commercials that now my team can do in 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
In 3 minutes, I can get a quality commercial that I would put on television or on the web that would cost me $100,000 10 years ago. Nuts, right?
Oh, and he's probably paying pennies for it.
He told me what the cost was, and it was basically nothing, but to get them really done well.
I had it in my head before to do that digital stuff that I had to have this elaborate production and I had to hire a videographer and all that other stuff. That was so wrong. Like, people didn't care about the production quality. They cared about the content. And what I would encourage, just even hearing this dialogue, is get momentum, get started, and then you can pretty it up afterwards, right?
We were in the Wall Street Journal this weekend. I was talking about R360, how instead of doing portfolio defense for Tiger 21 that you do once a year, we put together a 45-minute film documentary that would cost you $100,000. And we have an award-winning filmmaker, a woman that used to run a TV station out of London for 14 years. So we already have that team doing it. And every week we're filming, because the idea is, how do you speak to your great-great-grandchildren who you're never going to meet? How do you transfer those values that we were talking about and ensure that you're inspiring them to live a happy, productive life? So we have the filmmaking team already. It's not like we got to go hire. I'm already paying for them.
I think the question becomes, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Like, if distributing your fantastic content to more people just to educate them, then problem solved, right? But if the goal is to engage them in a manner that you're trying to get more members or build the community,
both,
then it's a different level of content and a different level of engagement.
Right. So you and I are going to talk, because I want to pick your brain, because I'm sure you have a ton of lessons and would be able to guide me on what to do and what not to do.
What I've learned, and this is I think very relevant for the audience, is business development has to be, I have in my mind a flywheel, right? You can't just rely on one medium to connect and engage with people. You have to use webinars, you have to use podcasts, you have to use social media, you need to use metadata now. There's so many different outlets that people need to be engaged with. And especially with a buying decision, like my industry, it's not uncommon that we're hitting multiple generations on the decision to hire us, right? So what speaks to one might not speak to another. And I think, like, for example, with R360, you have the gauntlet of generation.
Yeah, right? 30-year-old to 80-year-old. Yeah. We even had a 92-year-old that applied, and his one question was, if I die before the 3-year membership, can I pass it to an heir?
Did you tell them they had to reapply?
No, I said, no problem. But that heir has to go through the membership process. Yeah. So he didn't apply, and maybe he didn't have confidence in his heir.
Or his ability to live 3 years, one or the other. Both are problems.
You're right in that it is very nuanced. It is a flywheel. Now, you mentioned flywheel, so I'm going to mention it to my audience. Jim Collins has a flywheel concept. Amazon is Amazon because in 2001, they adopted the Jim Collins flywheel, and it's sequential. You have to do X first at a 9 or 10 level, which then leads you to this. And if you do that at 9 or 10, it leads you to that. And then it spins around. But if you put all your resources in step 3, because you haven't really thought about it and you haven't done one or two, that wheel isn't going to spin, or it's not going to spin very well. It's not going to be sustainable.
I'll speak to myself. I am a visionary, like following the EOS infrastructure. Like I'm the visionary. I'm not the integrator. I'm not the implementer. Most businesses don't let the visionary get out of the way. And one of the things that I think I did very well and right was I delegated and empowered. And frankly, I could have done even better. But having someone to run business development for me that can take my brain and turn it into a process and go and implement it was invaluable. And now it's at a different level where I had my tracking matrix and things I was looking at. But now, I mean, my dashboards have dashboards, right? And like I can click in and I can see visibility on every part of our lead flow engines, all the business development.
When you think of an integrator, it's more COO, but what you just said is more sales, right?
It's an integrator on the sales side, right? Like
Right.
my president's my integrator. Well, I'm an EOS as well, but then we have each of our respective department heads. My point is, most founders are great salespeople, but when it comes to running a process on a sales side, not very good. I'm going to speak to myself.
I'm in the same boat. And I had brought on Michael Cole, who is an incredible operator. He's built like 3 businesses that started from 0 and became 15 billion. And he did it within those big corporate organizations. So he has a skill set that, quite frankly, I don't have, which he became the integrator until he decided he wanted to go do something else within R360, be a chair. So I have a different integrator, but some people are born with that ability.
But it's similar to the archetypes, right? Like there are so many different ways of creating wealth. It's not just one avenue, right? And that's to me is the most fascinating part of the stories and the journeys. I totally geek out as I meet new people. Like, all right, how'd you do it? What'd you do? Right? Like, especially when you go into areas where I would just say there's a prevalence of wealth, right? You go to like South Florida and it's like, where is all this money coming from, right? Like, and then you start to engage with these individuals and it's like, these are some amazing stories.
We don't have many financial advisors in R360. But first, you had mentioned the difficulty in hiring the people with the right culture. What is a hiring mistake that you've learned to avoid? And what is the single best interview question that you ask people to come into your organization?
The single biggest mistake is I would hire somebody because I liked them and I thought that I would get along with them. And which I learned very quickly, especially in leadership roles, the best hires are actually usually the people that I don't get along with, like the personalities.
Because they challenge you, right?
Yeah. And so I would say coming back to that core values comment, like hiring alignment with those, making sure that you're hiring specific to your core values, that's extremely important. It's extremely important to hire for that alignment, being intentional. You want somebody who can be with you today, but also be with you in the future. Not necessarily somebody that you just want to go and play golf or have a beer with, right? Like those are not the type of people that you need to be hiring.
If you're young and watching this and you want to create wealth, there is a strategy, and I want you to help younger people. Call it the 18 to 30 bucket. Let's start there. I'd love for you to give them advice on both phases. Like phase 1, what should they be doing if they want to create wealth so that they're going to have freedom? And then when they've created a certain amount, and maybe you can guide like what that range would be, what would be your checklist of this is the type of financial advisor, these are the questions I'd ask, is what they would look like. And obviously there are certain financial advisors that they have minimums like 10 million, but let's just say that it's not one of them.
So on the wealth creation question, I would say start with creation of value. Find a problem that is consistent that needs a solution.
But let's say they're not an entrepreneur. Let's say they're working for those 10 years, 11, like you, like me. They're in the military, they're working for an organization, they're working hard, they're getting promoted. So over that 10-year period,
Even in that accumulation phase, then it just becomes math. Spend less than what you make, right? And make sure you're saving first.
for you, it's so freaking obvious because you spent your whole life studying this and advising people. Explain it to somebody that doesn't really get it, what should be their goal?
I think goals have to be individual to each of us respectively, right? There are lots of people who their goal is to have a fantastic lifestyle. And because of that, that means they spend more. But that decision has consequences. That decision means that you're going to have to work longer. If your goal is, I want to be independently wealthy by the age of 50, and I'm going to work hard for the next 25 to 30 years to be able to accomplish that so that I have financial independence and I'm free. At 50 years old, I can do whatever I want. Well, that's another decision that also has consequences, which means you need to save more earlier on. So my point with
Right.
all of that is each of us respectively has different and individualized goals, and making sure that you're aligned on what that is with the strategy that you're implementing and executing.
Let's say it's one of your kids and they're like, Dad, you know what? I respect everything you've done, but you know what? I want to create my own wealth. I have this financial goal by age 50. I want to be worth $5 million. Can you help me figure out how I need to do that?
That's math. Yeah. My basics answer is you need to build a financial plan and you need to do it as early as humanly possible. But let's use this example. Somebody who's making $100,000 a year, you know, right off the bat, $25,000 to $30,000 is going away just for taxes, depending upon where you live. You got FICA, you got Medicare, you got income tax. So you've got 70 left. And then at that point, you need to live. But in order to hit that goal, that's where building a financial plan is imperative. And it might be as quickly as possible, you're maxing out your 401k contributions, 23,500 right now, right? Max that out. That's the first step.
Tell them why. Tell them about like the matching component.
Time value of money. So a dollar today is worth significantly more in the future because of compounding. So most companies have a match as well. So my general guidance for anyone going into the workforce is at an absolute bare minimum, you're putting enough money in to max out your match. So like, for example, Bogart Boss match is 6%. So if you put up to 6% of your income. So if you put 6 grand, you make 100 grand, you put 6 grand in, I put 6 grand in, right?
That's year one, that's 12. Explain what compounding is, which Einstein or Buffett or someone said is the eighth wonder of the world.
Yep. Well, and again, this is where it's math, right? I'm super quick to answer that. But let's just say you put a dollar in today, it grows 10%. Now it's worth $1.10. Next year, it grows by another 10%. Now it's worth $1.21. And it continues to grow and compound year over year over year. So the earlier you can get money into these accounts and starting growing and working for you, the better off that you're going to end up being financially. I think about my kids, right? Like I am actually putting money in. So my kids are employees of my business, and each of them get paid a salary for that. They're each getting money that is now making it so that they can have a Roth IRA, and we're creating Roths for them. You know, and I've had colleagues say to me, "Why do you care?" Well, I care because I know the value of compounding and the time value of money. When I look at what my 8-year-old's already accumulated in a Roth IRA account, which is growing tax-free for the rest of her life already, and she's 8, that is meaningful wealth creation.
Absolutely.